we will reconvene the Port Commission meeting for June 3rd, 2021. We will now close the executive session. There was no business conducted during the executive session, just discussion of real estate transactions. And now, we will call roll. Commissioner Shepard.
Here.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Here.
Commissioner Bell is here. And then move to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the commission on any matter before the commission or not before the commission, feel free to do so at this time. Anybody want to wave their hand if you're on the screen or pipe up? None? Hearing none, we will have another one at the end of the meeting, so if you think of something between now and then, feel free to weigh in at the end of the meeting. And we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Any discussion, Commissioner Shepard?
I don't have any, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I have none as well, thanks.
That makes three of us, no discussion.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is a yes, and Steve Walker, I'm glad you enjoyed that. I did that just for you. All right, moving on. We will now go to our presentations and start with Brady Scott with our Working Waterfront Coalition update.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. I'm Brady Scott, Senior Port Manager, Senior Property Manager with the Port. I'm going to share my screen here. Stand by. How's that? You guys see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. So this is a presentation. It's a progress report on our continuing efforts with the Working Waterfront Coalition, considering a policy to protect marine trade properties here at the port. We're not asking for any formal action today, but are interested in any questions or feedback commissioners may have for us. To start, I would like to invite Pete Granger, president of the coalition, to say a few words about our collaborative efforts to date.
Excuse me just a second, Brady. I want to make sure I've got the right stuff they sent to me here because I can't Zoom where I'm at. We're on the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. Is that correct?
It should be the Working Waterfront Task Force slideshow.
Okay, I don't know that I got that. All right, go ahead. Oh, here we go. Yep, got it. All right, very good. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, Pete, maybe you can say a few words here.
You bet. Thank you, and thank you, commissioners. My name is Pete Granger, president of the Working Waterfront Coalition of Watkins County. First of all, I want to thank the port for including us as a full-fledged planning partner in this task force. Our task force committee included myself, Jim Kyle, George Dyson, Casey Ohms, Mike McCauley, and Steve Walker. And I must say it was a very collegial process from start to this point. The port staff, led by Shirley McPheron, was respectful of our positions and showed nothing but professionalism in our discussions and ultimate agreement on most issues. Thanks go out to Shirley. Hope she's enjoying her well-earned retirement. And Brady Scott, George McHenry, and Brian Gordon, among others. We're pleased that the policy preserving marine trades properties and designated areas along the Blaine and Bellingham waterfront will go a long way toward preserving existing firms and their employees, most of whom are members of the coalition, and new arrivals in the coming years. We fully realize that what we are helping create is a plan only. The ultimate decision making on any project or real estate transaction lies with the commission. We certainly learned a lot about port planning and real estate execution, and thanks again for the opportunity to join the port in this very important planning effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. So I'll move forward with the presentation and of course, stop me with any questions, or we can cover anything at the end. Go to the second slide. As you will recall, the draft policy we've prepared for you, I think this is the third time we've presented portions of it along the way. And the policy is essentially a set of maps that contain designations that direct what activities or uses would be allowed on port property. And there are two designations we've come up with. First is the Water Reliant Commercial Marine designation, which prescribes uses that require access to water. And that definition came from our rental policy, which we established in 2017. The second designation, which was newly created for this process, is the Maritime Contributing designation, which prescribes having some marine-related or marine trade type of use in those areas. These designations are then reflected on a set of maps that show what properties are designated as one of those two designations. Since we last presented this to you, we are proposing a change to the policy, and it's shown in that green box. It's just a change that would allow 100% maritime contributing type of use to also occur in the water reliant commercial marine designated areas. This was added in as an example where this applied is with the Northwest Marine Industries facility at Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park. This company leases a building there, and they build small trailerable boats. And while their use does not technically meet the water reliant commercial marine designation, because they don't have to be located on the waterfront, they are considered 100% maritime contributing, and as such could be allowed under this draft policy in either designated area. And when we look at the map, I'll show you that further in the slide show. As also explained in the past presentation, this policy would be used when implementing future leasing decisions that the real estate division conducts. This policy would be also implemented subject to the authority of the Port Commission, which in and of itself provides absolute flexibility to lease property for what the commission deems appropriate. Another new addition to the policy, which we're bringing forward today for your consideration, is to include an allowance for uses that do not necessarily meet one of those two designations described earlier, but that could be allowed if there was a substantial public interest and if the use contributed to the maritime vitality of the working waterfront. This addition to the policy was a proposal brought forward by the Working Waterfront Coalition and is intended to reflect further on the flexibility the Port Commission has to allow other uses that may fit into the working waterfront, but which may not otherwise meet the designation. So examples might include, but not limited to, something like a restaurant, a nonprofit organization use, a government facility, or public access. Now I'm going to run through the series of maps. Since we last presented these to you, we have a couple new maps to share, and we've made a few tweaks based on your previous input to some of the other maps. And so I'll quickly go through these. This first map shows, actually we had combined this map now. The earlier area you looked at around the Squalicum Creek you've already seen. We added it onto this map and expanded it to include the Squalicum Harbor area. The white areas are the areas that are designated as water reliant commercial marine use, which is the main harbors and the web locker areas on this map. The areas in salmon would then be the maritime contributing use, the salmon color up in here, including the area of the new fisherman's pavilion being constructed. And then areas that are not colored but are still port-owned property, for instance, the Bellwether Peninsula and Zoowanage are just not covered by these designations. So the policy wouldn't apply in those locations. So this is the map that collectively with Coalition we put together to be incorporated in this policy at this point. The next slide is also a new map, which covers the Bellingham shipping terminal area, the shipping terminal, and the banding yard across the street is proposed to be designated as the water reliant commercial marine designation. And then the log yard or the log pond area is proposed as maritime contributing. We've previously presented the marine trades area to you. This map, we've had a couple minor changes since the last presentation to you. We added the Romaine parcel, which is located by the arrow, and so we updated this map to include that parcel in the water reliant commercial marine area. And as well, this small parcel fronting on the Watkins waterway was missed the first time around, and so that was added. Other than that, this map is the same as previously shown and discussed. Continuing forward, we also talked about Fairhaven previously. This is where we made a change at the FMIP based on input from the commission previously. We had buildings 6 and 7 in the salmon color, but with the change to allow 100% maritime contributing uses in the white area, we've redesignated this area as a water reliant commercial marine and expanded that. And so that kind of ties into one of the changes to the policy we're proposing. And then the last map we have that would go with this policy is in Blaine, and there's been no changes since our earlier discussions on that. Those are the maps. Quickly go over the first steps and then open it up for any feedback or questions. The next step we're doing right now is feedback from you as the commission. And then based on that input and together with the Working Waterfront Coalition, we would work to finalize the policy and the maps and then bring back to the commission for action in the form of a resolution to approve. And then the final step would be for that resolution to be incorporated into the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvement, which ties nicely into the next presentation and will be discussed briefly in that on how this policy would be incorporated into that. And so at this time, if the commission has any questions or feedback on this policy, I'd be happy to listen and hear. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask for questions, give you guys a minute to think. But Brady, can you go back to the Blaine slide for just a second? I just need to. Nothing's changed, and I want to move it with my fingers, but I can't.
Yeah. So we go ahead.
Is that a park to the east? No, east.
So
is that?
You're talking about this strip?
Yeah. Is that public park? Is that owned by the city?
That's the railroad right away. We own right along the red. So the white parcel goes up to the boundary of our property.
And to the right of your arrow, is that all railroad property then?
Yes.
NSF, okay, BNSF. Okay, that's all. Commissioner Shepard, do you have anything?
I don't think I have any questions, but I would, the committee's done a great job of keeping us updated on their progress. And I think this work goes a long way to protecting the type of jobs that we see as kind of interwoven into who we are as an organization and what we've been hearing loud and clear from our community that they value as well. So I appreciate all the work. it's always a great exercise to map out all these parcels, and I'm sure this, I can imagine how much work has gone into this to try and get our hands around and our brains around each of these different parcels and to think through them. So it's just a useful exercise, and I think these maps will continue to have quite a bit of use for us as we move forward. Thanks.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Clarification and some comment on the proposed policy revision number 2. Brady, if you could clarify substantial public interest and, that says and. Okay,
Yeah,
what's
so
after and?
it goes together with the next bullet, contributing to the maritime vitality of the working waterfront.
So, what are you folks considering substantial public interest? I mean, can you clarify that part?
Well, that would be for the commission, I think, to decide what that meant in the commission's interpretation of that. The example where I believe this came up is where we purchased the Remain building and you know, a seafood market restaurant was provided for there, which fits into, I believe, the vitality of the working waterfront and has, you know, public interest for that to be located there. So that may be an example. I'm sure there'd be other examples that could be spoken about. The coalition, Pete, may have some thoughts on this, as this was proposed by them as to be included.
Yeah, this is Pete again. Bobby, my understanding is, and Jim isn't on the call, that he was the one that really came up with this. In the previous plan, maritime-oriented nonprofits and government organizations or facilities, restaurants, boating clubs, certain other things were not included in maritime related. And so we felt that if something like that was at all maritime oriented or would bring interaction with the maritime community, that this would give you all on the commission some flexibility to consider adopting that, you know, on a transaction by transaction basis. So.
Okay, I think I'll have to talk with Jim and see where he was going, what he was thinking about, what he had here. All right, that's all I had. Thanks for the work you guys have done on this on both sides of the table. It's always a big chore to undertake, breaking down and describing what should be where and what we want where. So, thank you for the inclusions that I brought up at the last showing of the work. And push the bell, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm just going to weigh in and say that I think it's incredibly important that we understand what the definitions of all of those categories mean. I think it's to the benefit of not only ourselves, but also to future commissions to have really clear definitions about what each one of those categories is, what's in and what's out of each one of those categories, so that that does not become a ambiguous point down the road, right?
Clarification is good.
Yeah.
So the policy does define it in more detail, the actual written policy that we have, which would appear in the resolution, but it's summarized on this page, the definitions of those. So they are defined. The water reliant commercial marine is more of a narrow definition, and purposefully, I believe the maritime contributing definition is more wide and general in nature, which goes along with how those the different areas are which areas, which property is designated those pieces.
Okay. I have nothing further. Okay.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. That concludes my presentation, if there's no further questions.
Okay, we'll move on to the next Comprehensive Scheme for Harbor Improvements.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg McHenry, Senior Planning Analyst for the Port of Bellingham. And I'll share my screen. Let's see. Just give me 1 second here. There we go. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm pleased to present to you this afternoon an update to the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. We did various research in looking into this update. We looked at what other ports were doing. We looked at what the port has done in the past, and we reviewed the RCWs. And if you'll notice the figures to the right-hand side of the screen, port comp schemes range in various forms and formats. The white paper on the far right is the Port of Olympia's comp scheme. And then directly next to that is the Port of Anacortes comp scheme. And on the bottom there, you may recognize our last comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements approved in 2016. The comp scheme's purpose, to maintain compliance with RCWs over time, to aid in the management of port land and other assets, to provide an opportunity for public input and outreach, and to be a useful resource document. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on each one of those points. Compliance with the RCWs. There is some confusion out there between the difference between comprehensive plans, which are required by cities and counties, and they fall under the Growth Management Act, compared to comp schemes. Let's see, instead of comprehensive plans, ports are required to do a comprehensive scheme. Ports have a great deal of flexibility in the format of their comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. Courts have ruled that a bundling of the port's budget and planning documents, including the local jurisdiction's comprehensive plan for the area, satisfy the requirement of comprehensive schemes. Management of port lands and other assets. This update will categorize the comp scheme by function rather than by regional area. It also provides a placeholder for policies and strategies. It can identify areas where additional site-specific master planning may be proposed or changes to proposed land use. And it provides for tracking of real property previously designated surplus and or underutilized snippets of property. Opportunity for public input and outreach. Each one of our land use plans or our master plans, our regional comp schemes, have had their own individual public process when they were adopted, and they still will. You'll recognize some of those in the figures to the right. This particular format of the comp scheme will be, once adopted, will be updated and adopted annually. This will provide another opportunity for the public to comment and also comment on the port's strategic goals and capital expenditures. A public hearing is required upon adoption and or updates to the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. And we are proposing to, and we did recently last December, incorporate the capital budget and 5-year budget forecast into the comp scheme. And we plan on doing that annually. A useful reference document. This update does not attempt to summarize prior planning efforts, but rather is a conduit or a vessel to hold and bundle and find them. It's a living document which will reside on the port's website and can be easily updated over time. It highlights facilities and programs, policies which are tied to strategic budget goals, and it's a reference document that is tied to the capital budget process to minimize scoping issues and outdated cost estimates contained in prior planning efforts. And it's an effort in transparency and highlighting our capital expenditures over time and updated annually. So the proposed functions that we are intending to break this up into is terminals, moorage facilities, commercial and industrial development, public priorities, and then I've mentioned some of the other proposed sections: policies and strategies, strategic budget, the key corporate goals and links to the capital improvement forecast, real property sales, surpluses, and land use changes, and then also an appendix of our various comp scheme resolutions over time. So what are our next steps in approving this particular update? We're planning on meeting with each individual department director, department heads, program coordinators regarding the development of what we call one-pagers as proposed in that functional outline. We will continue to work with stakeholders on the launch of the comprehensive scheme. And there will be a public notice of a public hearing in coordination with the budget process for soliciting comments on the comp scheme. And then after the public hearing, there will be another meeting to adopt the comp scheme along with next year's budget and 5-year capital budget forecast. So, you know, when I started here a few decades ago, I was kind of intimidated by all the acronyms. So I would be remiss if I didn't create a new one. So I'm calling this C-SHIP, Comprehensive Storyboard of Harbor Improvements. And I'll give you an idea of what it looks like. It's a GIS storyboard, and I'm going to launch it here. A lot of these warnings will go away when it goes live.
You probably need to share the new window. That's
let's see. Continue. It should.
probably a new screen share, I would expect.
Here we go. Yeah. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Is it coming up?
You have to stop sharing and then go to
Oh.
the new screen and then share again.
Okay. Thank you.
There it goes.
So here's the initial front page of the storyboard or C-SHIP. And you'll notice to the bottom left, there's an arrow that's pointing down. And people just scroll down and you'll find those functional breakdowns. It's much more interactive and it'll be on our web. Storyboards do allow you to add video. We're refraining from adding video right now. We're just doing still pictures because we're mindful of being able to also provide this comp scheme in printed format. And so videos would only show up with a, you know, like a button with an arrow to print when you, in the printed version. But I can go to some of the sections like terminals and just give you an idea. It scrolls down. We have one on the cruise terminal. It tells a little bit about the cruise terminal, how many passengers per year, what its terminal services and amenities are, and then basically summarizes what capital improvements we are planning over the next 5 years. So here you can see after 30 years, BCT and its surrounding areas anticipated to have significant capital repairs and maintenance in the near term, and talks about the steel supports, the pile jacket work, and that type of thing. And it has a link to the Fairhaven. Now, are you able to see that still, or is that a new page? It'll take you to the Fairhaven regional comp plan. That
We
was
can see it.
last adopted in 2008. Another example here, I'll just scroll down to the airport. You know, it has its own airport master plan and its own planning process. You know, there's no attempt to redo that. We just kind of describe what the airport's facilities are available. We have a link directly to the BLI master plan where people can view and download that. We summarize some of the capital projects. We have links to the ALP sheet 3 as well. Now, I know the working waterfront is probably mostly interested in our policies and strategies section, so we can go to there. One of the first policies that we have, and one of the comments that we always get from our tribal partners, is remembering the archaeological and historic preservations in our comp scheme. So we have specific language there, contact numbers if that's ever an issue on any sort of development project. And for whatever reason, the state guidelines if skeletal remains are ever found. But if I keep scrolling down, there's where our waterfront, our water reliant leasing policy will reside. And we'll have direct links to the written policy as well as to the overlay maps. Now, this is not set up as the individual map set, which would be provided that Brady showed you. This is more of an interactive map where people can scroll, turn on layers. We have different zoning layers that they can turn on. The legends are available so they can see what the colors mean. I'm also working on having a permanent legend automatically pop up with the map, but they can, you know, scroll down to Fairhaven and things like that. So that's kind of the idea behind the storyboard, that it's a vessel for all this other prior work that's been done on your, this has all been written based on this year's already approved budget, and once we go through the budget process, we'll update it for the next budget that's approved. And it has our corporate goals. There's different things, technologies where you can turn on autoplay. You know, it's a very nice tool. So this is the format that we're looking at going to. And at this point, I will open it up to any questions or comments.
I'll start with you, Commissioner Briscoe.
Looks like a lot of work. And I have no comments other than that.
Commissioner Shepard?
Sure. I really appreciate any time we're making documents and our processes easily accessible to the public, and especially when we can also do so in a really visually, aesthetically enjoyable manner. So you've done it's a really nice job with the design, and it looks really sharp and clean, and I think is a easy way for the public to be able to understand what are some of our major assets and what are some of the projects that we have coming down the line, and how to access information. You know, people don't always know a lot about what the Port Commission does or what the port does as a whole. So anytime we're able to easily communicate and provide quality information that is attractive and interesting for people to use, I think we're doing a good service. So thanks for your work on this. I really like the way it looks.
Yeah, Greg, I'll echo that. I'm a little attention deficit challenged at times, and things with lots of pictures are perfect for me. So, Greg, an amazing job. I love this thing, by the way, and it is nice that you had a Karen along with this picture. Every port should have a Karen, I believe. That fell flat, didn't it? If you've got to explain the joke, it's not really a joke. So Greg, anyway, I love the tabs. I love the explanation. This is going to be an easy tool, and I'll probably actually find myself using it a lot more often than, you know, trudging through a lot of the documents we've had in the past. So I just think this is a magnificent tool. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It will be directly linked on our website, and we hope to make it as interactive as possible. I know Brian Gowron has instructed me to work on the scratch and sniff portion of the environmental department. Just kidding.
That was funny.
Thank you, Greg, for having a joke that people actually understood. All right, with that, we'll move on to the next action item. Thanks, Greg, again. Move on to Stephanie for the Independence Day celebration update.
Thanks, Commissioner Bell. This is Tiffany DeSimone, manager of Marinas, and I was just going to introduce Stephanie. She's the new Tiffany for community outreach. So she's our new community outreach supervisor and has currently been on the job for about 5 weeks. And she is here to give you an update on the 4th of July.
Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. I am excited as an events professional to see community events coming back to the community. And while this is not a normal year for the 4th, it's very exciting that the commission has supported and encouraged us to have the fireworks display this year. So let me share my screen. So this year we did have the unique opportunity, since we are not having our full festival of events on the 4th, to name the fireworks display, and the community outreach team was able to do an internal survey with our Port of Bellingham employees and colleagues to name the fireworks display, and they voted on Blast Over the Bay 4th of July fireworks display. So we're excited to be using that in our marketing of the event. In conversation with Guy Acciagrosso, the president and CEO of the Bellingham Regional Chamber of Commerce, we have decided to keep that fireworks display start time right around 10:30, which is the time it normally starts. We want to keep that consistency between years so that people know it's going to continue happening. And next year, we're looking forward to getting back to the full festival of events. The Chamber was able to get a few more additional sponsors for the fireworks before they had to put in the order last week. So big thank you to our additional shell sponsors, Barron Heating, AC Electrical and Plumbing, Best Western Plus, Bellingham Airport, and Puget Sound Energy. And in putting in our order with Wolverine West for the shells, we can expect about a 15-minute show this year, which is fantastic. That's a really good length. I believe it's a few minutes longer than our show in 2019. So we're very excited about that. And we are mainly using our social media channels for marketing this event. We did push out the announcement that we'll be holding the fireworks display this year over our Facebook and Instagram channels yesterday, and we're going to continue throughout this month to promote the fireworks display, not only to get people excited that we're celebrating this year, but also to give them ideas or suggestions on how to safely watch the fireworks. If they're not comfortable yet with coming down to port properties, what are some other ideas for how to enjoy it, but also where are all the options on our port properties that they'll be able to see the fireworks from. We are working with Northwest Safety Signs this year to help with the coordination of and control of parking and traffic flow through Squalicum Harbor. We worked with them in 2019 and that was fantastic. So we're going to work with them again this year. And here is our map for the parking and traffic control in the park. And having them on board really helps get people quickly and safely out of the harbor following the fireworks, because it tends to be a bit of a mad rush there. So we'll be working with them. We are also working with Pacific Security to add additional security across all of our port properties. We have 23 additional security officers and 1 patrol supervisor that will be on site on our various properties on July 4th. And that does include up in Blaine. While we don't have a hand in their fireworks display, that is their Chamber of Commerce in their city, we are adding additional security to our port properties up there. And then on the 4th, while we don't have any additional activities happening down on port properties, we are going to have a tent up run by the community outreach team. So we'll be down there on port property from about 5 p.m. until the fireworks are done, so we can answer any questions, be that port presence down there at the park, and also have first aid and things like that. So really quick and simple update, but I'll open it up to any of your questions that you might have about our plan so far.
Mr. Shepherd, do you have any questions?
Are we going to be doing any traffic control or anything at the Waterfront district?
We will have barricades up for our parking lot at the pump track, and we'll pull those across once they are full, but we're not doing any sort of traffic control on the streets. And we're very interested to see what the activity and what the crowds will look like down there at the waterfront, so we can plan a little bit better for next year when we have a more robust event happening.
Commissioner, if I can add on to that, the Bellingham Police have historically provided traffic control at Swanage Point Park free of charge. And this year we've heard mixed messaging on that they want to charge us or they're not going to provide it. I plan to bring it up with the mayor and see if we can get them to provide it. But if you talk to any council members of the mayor, it might be a good idea to bring that up as well. We just want them to do what they normally do, which is provide the traffic control at Swanage Point Park.
Yeah, Rob, if I can step in there real quick. So they provide the traffic control, not inside the harbor, but along the city streets on Roeder and Coho there at the intersection.
Anything else, Commissioner Shepard?
Well, it just seems like a pretty neat opportunity. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be riding on the pump track while enjoying something from the container village and watching the fireworks at the same time.
Just
really-
clarification, the pump track closes at dark, the fireworks start at dark.
Oh, man.
So
I'll
get those
just have
rides
to-
in before.
right up till.
Yes.
Okay. Looking forward to this. Thanks.
Might not be a bad idea to have dinner at the Bellwether. Just saying. There's
Or
some-
the Bellingham Airport Best Western, which bought additional shells, whereas the Bellwether, we asked to buy additional shells, they didn't do it, so. just
Never
saying.
mind.
You're giving them a promo, and Best Western Lakeway, and Best Western Airport bought additional
Best Western
shells.
Airport.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Thank you to our sponsors.
No, I think this is great. We got things back on track. I was pretty excited to say yes. I think we need to move forward with it, and thank my fellow commissioners for doing the same thing. I think it's healthy for our community to have this function, especially things in our country being what they are. I think it's pretty important. Thanks to staff for putting it together. Thanks to our sponsors. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Briscoe. And just a point of preference for Commissioner Bell, just because I'm old. I really do like the name Independence Day. I do a lot of work in Canada, and whenever we say 4th of July, it's meaningless. So it really is our Independence Day. So from the marketing standpoint, if we could at least somehow reference the fact that it's not just a day on the calendar, there doesn't seem to be any other holiday that we call out by the name, the day and the month, but this one. And it truly is our Independence Day, and I want to make sure that we somehow recognize that. It's not always referred to as the 4th of July ceremony. That's just the marketing side of me. Other than that, I'm really thankful to the Chamber for their support in this. And if you get a chance, just thank Guy next time you see him for putting himself out there and the Chamber out there for helping us get this through. So this is a success in my book, and it's kind of nice to feel like we're going back to normal. With that, there's nothing more from the commission meeting. I think we should do other business before we go on to comments. Do we have any other business? Rob says he's got 1, 2.
Commissioners, just 2 quick items. One is the chipper wheel. At one point in time, you gave me permission to accept a donation of the chipper wheel from Northwest Recycling. We were going to put that down by the pump track. We didn't move on that, 1, during the pandemic, 2, we weren't quite ready for it at the waterfront, and 3, we weren't sure how we were going to move it down there. But in the amount of time that we were delayed on that, unfortunately, it became unavailable to us. So I'm just letting you know as an FYI that the chipper wheel will not be moving down. We won't be accepting that gift from Northwest Recycling. I know it's bad. I mean, it's too bad, I should say. It would have been a good feature down there. But we've got a lot of the cool stuff going down there, and we'll miss it, but we'll carry on. The other item I have is a little trickier.
Where did it go?
They did not tell me what the use is. They just told me that it was no longer available, that they had another use for it.
Should have got a right of first refusal.
I should have, with the day they said we could have it, I should have moved it down there.
Yeah.
But I just assumed it would be available to us. So that one's on me, and I apologize for that. But like I said, we've got a lot of the cool stuff going on, and we'll make that place really cool. The other one of the topics is just kind of an FYI, and if you have any objections, please speak up. But my youngest son applied and received a job at the Hearth Fire, which is on port property. And there could be somewhat of a conflict of interest. I assure you that I asked Steve, the manager, to make sure that Carson got the job on his own merits and that it had nothing to do with me, and I wanted nothing to do with his employment there and didn't need to know anything about it. And Steve said he would give him an interview and just totally judge him on his own merits, and they did that, and they offered him a job. So if the commission has objections to that, please speak up and we'll look elsewhere. It's not worth the hassle and the headache for public relations. But I think I don't see much harm in it.
Well, I have no objection. Somebody wants to go to work, that's just fine with me.
That's just an invitation for us to go down there and harass the kid.
For sure,
So,
you know I will be.
I'm on it. I am on it. Thank you for that disclosure.
It's fine with me.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And Rob, I have a point of clarification for you.
Yes, sir.
The chipper is not on you. It's on the people that said we could have it, that reneged. In my book, that's not very good. You don't offer something up and someone accepts it, and then you take it back. So it's not on you, it's on them.
Agreed. Any other business, Commissioner Briscoe, that you'd like to bring forward?
No, this time.
Commissioner Shepard?
None at this time for me either.
And I have none, so let's go to public comment. If there's anyone that wishes to comment on anything presented tonight or anything not presented tonight, just feel free to chime in. Raise your hand, speak up. All right, thank you. Hearing none, looks like we get to conclude the meeting, and we want to welcome Stephanie to the port. You're going to love it here. Big shoes to fill. Thanks again, everybody. Meeting adjourned.